Welcome to the Mind Body Temple podcast. This is with Dr. Rod. Tania is my guest today and my long-term patient. Tania has been my patient for a long time, for many
Since 2005.
since 2005 after being injured in a car accident and you developed chronic pain. And we worked together a lot in order to help your pain condition. And you have been a very good patient following all the instructions and all the issues on education, on injections, on medications, and all the concept that we discussed. You have been always following, but still there was high level of suffering. And I was working on finding the reasons for my own injuries and my own sufferings, and then finding a way to help my patients. And in 2005 was your accident. My own accident was in 2003. So, that's not far from the time that I've developed the chronic pain and started working on finding better ways. And then I remember that when I put all the concept of Mind Body Temple together, I put together the book. And when the book was published, you were one of the really avid readers of that book and tried to grasp the concept and took notes and then came up with a practical way of implementing it to your health. And now we had this discussion of separating your pain from your suffering. So you came a long way. I really appreciate your presence here today because you can discuss how the pain first happened and how it impacted your life, because there are thousands and thousands of other people out there that are suffering from the same pain, the same circumstances and suffering from the suffering is affecting their life negatively. And then you can, tell them how you have learned this whole concept of step-by-step changing, like the clarity about the purpose, making peace with yourself, learning the skills, and then your whole system of daily reminders of the skills and how this can give others hope. And that's why you're here today. That's why I'm here today, to give hope to other patients. So here's Tania. So tell us a little bit about how the accident happened, without, too many details, but how the chronic pain happened and how it impacted your life.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for doing this. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. It was January 21st, 1997. I was involved in a motor vehicle accident. And I developed my pain slowly over the following, I'd say, 72 hours. And started trying to get some help. I found it very difficult. The road I went through, I had a lot of doctors who didn't believe what I was feeling. A lot of them thought it was in my head. But I had a hard time getting somebody to take me seriously. The pain that I was feeling at that time and was going through was severe. It affected everything. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't bathe properly. I couldn't do anything properly.
It basically affected every aspect.
Every aspect. I couldn't work anymore. Didn't go out anymore.
I remember you did some studies towards becoming a social worker in that.
Yeah, that was, I was a social worker when I had the accident.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going back to school for personal training.
Right.
But that was after I had started physiotherapy and started to understand about the body and how important this was for my well-being.
Right.
And in order to have some sort of independence in life.
Man.
So I went back to school, and learning all of that actually helped me continue my physio, because I had a personal trainer at the beginning that was covered by insurance. And when the insurance stopped, I was not in a financial position where I could keep going. So the best thing for me to do was to learn as much about my body and the body and how it works and how to just keep going on the path that I was on.
I remember from one side, I was very proud of you to attempt this upgrading of your knowledge and skills. And on the other side, these were starting to become too much on you, and you were really feeling the pressure of it, and your suffering was still there and bothering you a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I realized that I actually have to go through, I have to try certain things before I can actually determine whether I'll be able to do them or whether it's something I can continue doing long term. Once I got into the course and got halfway through, you know what happened? I started to see that this physically, it was not going to be something that I could do, that I can maintain. And of course, it plays with your head as well. Yeah. And so from there, I just took it as to not have this as a waste. I turned all that knowledge and just put it back into myself. And because of that,
Self-healing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, I'm still able to continue doing my working out and doing my physical therapy. And I've been able to increase the levels just because of the knowledge I learned by going to school.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and then the journey continued until you were really interested in that concept of mind body. You just talked about how your mind and your body are the only things that you truly own, and everything else are just manufactured contracts. And by making your mind organized and by keeping your body healthier, you rebuild your own structure of mind body temple. And then through this whole process, you start to heal. And it was then that some of this, because this process goes through steps of, level 1, level 2, the foundations, and then you go to the other steps. There was some sort of clarity that happened about the importance of the whole battery of emotional traumas that you have gone through life, and then the trauma of this accident, the emotional component of it that probably is not the main focus of many of the pain programs or other medical programs related to chronic conditions. Then that became clear to you, and you started to work on those concepts. And then once those became less effective on your physiology, then you had the breakthrough of having faster elimination of your suffering. Can you explain a little bit this transition for me?
Okay. So you did start talking to me about meditation and mindfulness a few years before I actually started doing it.
Yeah.
I was one of those people where I didn't really believe in all of that. I had a couple of friends who spoke to me about it, and they were doing it, and they would tell me how it helped them. But for some reason, I don't know, I was stuck there. Mm. So I slowly started taking your advice, kind of like I've got nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
So it started with finding mindful meditation on YouTube.
Yeah.
And playing it when I was going to sleep every night. At the beginning, I couldn't focus. Your mind races. It plays over everything. But I just kept it going, and I just kept pushing through until eventually I was able to fall asleep to meditation.
Yeah.
And I slowly realized that when I would wake up in the morning, I started to feel different. I couldn't put my finger on it, couldn't explain it to anybody, but I could feel something was changing. So I just kept going. Then I started learning more about it, watching other videos. I found mindfulness videos on chronic pain. I found mindfulness videos on confidence and just self-worth and self-value. And I started working on all of that. And then through conversations with you, I came to realize that part of my problem was stuck in the past. My childhood was not the best. Things that happened to me after the accident were still playing in my head. Although I thought I had dealt with all of that. I had been to psychiatrists, I'd been to psychologists. I thought I was good. I didn't think that had anything to do with what I was feeling today.
Yeah, we put them in different compartments. Here's my emotional issues, here's my physical issues. We tend to separate them from each other, thinking that, oh, these are different systems. But in reality, it's just one life form that is going through this experience. So that once that clarity came, that what has happened historically to your life and as what we call emotional traumas have been effective on the present experience of the pain, that was one wake up type of clarity of situation to you. The other was when we discussed as the first step, clarity about the purpose, what is important to you, write down things that are very important to you. And then, a lot of things came back to you that you always liked, but it became more clear to you, like your love for animals, for example, things that give you ultimate joy, and you can do them not being even paid because you don't even feel the passage of time. You're in the state of flow, as you say, pure joy when you're doing them.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
So I made a list, like you said, of everything that I liked. Through that, I realized the connection between my childhood, the accident, and the way I thought present day. So I started then trying to fix that. The way I thought in the past, I would then write something, I would flip it and write it in the present the way I wanted to see it.
Okay.
So it started like that. And then I would hear sayings, or I would hear something on TV that just resonated with me. One line, one word, I would write it down. I would put it on a sticky note and I would stick it someplace where I would see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into like mantras, and it turned into affirmations. And I have certain affirmations that are stuck to my wall. So when I open my eyes in the morning and I sit up, they're directly in front of me. I can't not see them. I cannot not read them.
Would see.
Right. I've done the same thing with my bathroom mirror. So when I'm brushing my teeth, washing my face, all of that, it's there. And you can't not see it. So you say it to yourself. I also have a little book, like a little pocketbook. I wrote down some of those mantras and affirmations. And if I'm waiting in line at a grocery store or in a waiting room at a doctor's office or looking for something, I will pull out my little book and I will read as many affirmations as I can. Slowly through doing that, you could feel there's a change. Something happens inside. It's almost like the past and the present start coming together. Mm-hmm. You're able to make peace with your past. I wrote my forgiveness letters to everybody.
Those practices that we talked about, it can become very emotional. Some people may even feel that they can become destabilized because they have put them into compartments and closed the door on them. Writing letters to people that have hurt you is not easy sometimes because it's the cut is very deep. But that's a way of facing your enemy. When you face your enemy becomes smaller. And then when you avoid your enemy, it becomes so bigger that can crush your whole life. And you went through this process. You find clarity on the first step on what are the things that are important for you. What are the things that give you a kick in the morning to get up and, the motivation, basically your why you want to get better.
Yes.
Then that became clear for you. And then you start to make peace with yourself.
Yes.
And it was based on these two steps when you separated the resentment from the pain that was translated to resentment towards yourself. You start learning that you should not dislike yourself just because you dislike your pain and your circumstances. And then I remember even today you mentioned this, that, you separated the pain from the experience, and then that's how gradually the suffering went away. And it was interesting that you told me the circumstances are still the same, but your experience is different.
Yeah, I still have the same issues in my life, financial, physically, everything. It's just, it looks different now.
You're not suffering it.
No, it's, the pain is part of who I am. It's almost like a 100% acceptance of it. And if you don't like it, you don't need to be around me. Period. That's the way I look at it now.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You use a good word, acceptance, because there's this whole school of psychology called acceptance and commitment. But then you accept everything as is, and then you commit to the path forward.
Yes.
And then tell me a little bit more about how that set of skills. It's as if you have a library of skills, and when the circumstances arise, you reach out to your skill and apply it to each.
So now before, when I couldn't physically do something and I really wanted to do it, it was quick for me to knock myself down, put myself down, and spiral. And I could spiral quick into very, very dark place. Now when it happens...
What happens in that dark place? Like, how do you feel? Like, I don't want to take you there to out of the experience, but if you can explain.
Yeah, I can explain it with, it doesn't bother me as much anymore because of all of this, right? But my world would become extremely small and very dark. I would become, in my own mind, useless, stupid, dumb. I would say, like what the childhood that I had would all come flooding back. All those negative things that I was told all came into this, and I would just spiral. And I would end up depression, anxiety, and it would last sometimes days, sometimes weeks, and all it took was one incident to trigger that. It was like I couldn't stop it.
And during those days or weeks, you can't really do much. You can't do much self-care or any professional activity or any societal, nothing.
And if I did have to do something, I'd have to have such a conversation with myself just to get myself there. And it was all fake. The person that you were talking to was fake. Mm-hmm. I put up a front to get through what I needed to get through. And then when I got home, I would just bawl my eyes out and go back to... And go back to that place.
That place, But now, now the skills help you, the understanding of why you want to get better, the fact that you have made a separation and distinction between the resentment toward the situation and not resenting yourself, and then now you're allowing yourself to have the experience, but not a terrible experience, but as part of the life.
My world is good. For the first time in my life, my world is good. Nothing's changed. I'm still in the same financial situation. I still have the same injuries and limitations and disabilities, but the world is different to me now. My brain is different. The way I look at stuff is different. The fully at 100% being able to accept that this is who I am, that changed everything.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get there without understanding everything leading up to it. I couldn't get there without the meditation. I couldn't get there without those conversations with you. There was no way for me to make that leap to connect the dots.
I mean, this is quite remarkable. I always say that nothing changes, but everything changes.
Everything has changed.
This paradox of reality is quite intriguing, that there is a little bit of the negative and positive in each scenario. And then once you look at the whole picture, you can accept, understand, and move forward.
Yes.
And then nothing changes, but everything changes.
Yeah. My future, I don't worry about the future anymore. That before was on my mind constantly.
The shame of the past, anger related to the past, and the anxiety of the future crushing your existence. But now you have learned to live in the moment.
Yes.
You have the memories, but you have a different understanding and acceptance. You have the plans for future, but it doesn't translate into the worry and rumination about the future. And every day you're present with all the reminders that you have come up with. I give you a lot of credit, really. You have to give more credit to yourself. That you have come up with your own system of putting reminders that you cannot avoid.
Yes.
You look at them and they remind you of what is happening, that what are your skills and how you can have a better experience. And then through that, you move on with your day. And you're telling me now that now you're experiencing some feelings that you haven't experienced for a longer time. And that's the joy. Like even a friend had to tell you what that feeling is. It's interesting.
I will tell the story. Yeah, I'll explain it to you again. So I use music a lot. It can change my mood. I suggest anybody in this situation find that one thing that can flip the switch in you like this and keep it close. So I use music, and I had my headphones on and I was walking down the street and I started to feel like my feet were no longer touching the ground, and I felt these emotions of just pure peace, joy, elation. I didn't know what was happening. I'd never felt this before. So I called my friend and I said to her, I go, look, I think I'm losing my mind, but this is what I was feeling. And she told me that that's what euphoria feels like. Pure happiness. And I was like, wow, because I had never felt that before. It didn't stay with me all day, but the fact that I felt that, I can tap into it sometimes now.
Right.
I've felt that now several times since that initial one. But again, nothing in my life has changed. It's just my brain has. The way I look at things, the way the world looks to me is different.
That's amazing. It's just you learn something and then you start doing things as practices, and then you continue the practices. It becomes like your new habit, and then the new habit, you continue implementing all these practices, and then new habit becomes the way you are. So it becomes from doing to the being.
Yeah.
And then that process changes, and then these glimpses of bliss or happiness or joy or euphoria, whatever you call it, state of flow that they call it as well, as if the universe is moving and you're moving with it. There's no resistance, and you can. That's when you can think. Yeah, you can have the joy of life. The zest of life comes back to you.
Yes.
And you become prepared to enjoy your life despite all the difficulties.
Yes.
That is our goal. You know, for me as a pain physician, bringing pain down from a level, say, 8 to a level 6 is not really a success. My success is when your experience of life changes and then you eliminate the suffering. And that's where the mind-body temple concept is, for you to rebuild your own mind-body temple, your own mind and your own body. And that, how beautiful it is that you are the person that is the architect and rebuilding it. And you go through these step-by-step stages, and then you allow yourself to enjoy your life for the first time.
I don't want to make it sound like it was all simple. It wasn't. It took a lot of focus. It's something that you have to want.
Right.
When you get that feeling of wanting a change, it's like you hit a wall and you're just like, I've done all this for so long. I know where I'm always ending up.
Yeah.
I don't like that. So it was time for me to change. And that was the trigger. Without having that feeling of wanting something better, wanting something good for myself, I don't know if I would have made it here. But that gave me the focus and the determination to do the work. Once I started doing the work and I started to feel those little, they were minor, but you could feel the changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was off to the races after that.
That's amazing.
I didn't want to stop. And even now, I can't thank you enough. The world that you opened up for me.
Well, I thank you for being such a good soldier and doing all the work, because you're doing something. You remember, I told you that make sure you write down all this journey, write it down, because then one day you will be the guide for others. And being the person that you're sitting here now and sharing your story with thousands of other people. And then the most important thing in life that we can give others is hope. And I thank you for sharing this story and giving hope to others.
And I thank you for giving me the hope and for giving me the want to do this. I've told you this before. You've saved my life, and I knew that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I'm glad that you came this far, and then the rest is just pure joy, hopefully.
That's going to be.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Raj.